trying to change the rules to try and win. What do you make of it? How do you defend it?
Well, first off, thank you so much for having me on this show. And I don't think that's the case at all. I think it's really important to look at the Electoral College and remember that the founding fathers put it in place because they didn't trust the public. And times have changed. People's vote should matter, and every vote should count. And so I think it's something that people should really consider and think about, that your vote counts and your vote matters. And we should discuss that issue about the Electoral College.
Okay, Ron,
and in regards to people...
Yeah, Ron, respond to that real quick, because that's interesting that the founding fathers didn't trust the public. Should we be more trusting at this point?
Well, I think that this just shows a total lack of civics education, and really that's a fundamental problem with the base of the Democratic Party, is that we haven't even gone back to Greek history to realize why majoritarianism failed and why the founders railed against mob rule by the majority. Yeah. And what the Electoral College does is actually protects political minorities. It protects people in rural America and smaller states. And I know that right now the Democratic candidates running for 2020 can't find anything redeemable about the American experiment or about the American founding, but this is one of those things that's actually been worth preserving and does actually have a protection for states and for people that don't have a voice.
He makes an interesting point about, trusting mob rule. People vote for what's in their best interest, not necessarily what's in the country's best interest. If you say, vote for me and I'll give you $1,000, you're going to get a lot of people's votes.
Well, that's, debatable, but I think that we should think about the fact that people vote and their vote should matter, and that the populace and the people should make a determination on who becomes the president. I think that's really important. And also discussing about the young voters, I think that 16-year-olds should be able to vote, and they should have the opportunity to do that.
And let's stop right there. Tell me why you think a 16-year-old who's likely to vote for whoever a celebrity wants him to vote for, why should a 16-year-old be able to vote with no life experience, really?
Well, I think there's three reasons and why a 16-year-old should be able to vote. One of the first reasons is that they have knowledge about civics just as much as older people. The second reason is that 16-year-olds pay taxes and no taxation without representation, so they should be entitled to vote.
If thirdly, they work, I guess.
And thirdly, also the fact that the things that are happening are affecting their lives, and they should be able to make a decision about it. And there's a lot of movements by young people to make change, and so they should have the opportunity to vote. And also, when young voters vote, they're more consistent to vote for a longer period of time.
Ron, let's go over to you. A lot of people say younger kids have been indoctrinated by universities and celebrities. They don't think for themselves. What do you make of that?
Well, my question is, yes, of course, policy impacts every American, whether or not you're just born or whether you're 15 years old. If you're going to lower it to 16, why not 15? You think 15-year-olds don't deserve to have some sort of voice in the country? You think 14-year-olds don't, 13, and so on? The question is really, I think you made a great point, is that you're saying studies show the difference between 21-year-olds and 16-year-olds is very little on civics education. The problem is civics education. The problem is that our high schools and our colleges aren't teaching people about the merits of the American founding. They aren't teaching people the full context of history. They aren't giving people an actual basis on how American government works, that actually localities and local governments do most of the things that you see in your daily lives, not the President of the United States. Yeah. And if people were educated, guess what? More than 30% of those under 30 would be voting. Only 30% voted in 2018 of those who are under 30. Yeah. How about this? Let's fix that problem first before we say let's have
their motivation and their interest in politics is lesser, for sure.
Then we should change the Electoral College so people's votes matter and it counts. Absolutely. We should do that.
Kelly, I'm going to ask you one last question. A new CNN poll shows Bernie Sanders' popularity has really come down quite a bit, especially when compared to 2016. You look 46% right now, 59% back in June 2016. What do you think accounts for this, Kelly?
I don't think it counts for anything. I think polls, change sporadically. However, I think that it's important that we have a candidate that crosses party lines, and brings people together. And I think that the Democrats will have that candidate.
Okay. All right. We got to leave it there, guys. But thank you so much for an interesting debate this morning.
Thanks, Rob.
All right.
Thank you.
There's that poll that came out this week saying scientists say that your brain isn't actually reaching adulthood until your 30s.
I'm still not there. I'm 35.
True.
I'm still working on the brain.
We're not there. None of us are. It's 38 minutes after the hour. The New York Times fact checker who infamously smeared a veteran and ICE hero just got a new gig at NYU, and it's what she's teaching that has everyone talking this morning.
We know that it was outrageous that we had a president of the United States on the same day that this horrific
He's very loud. This Democratic candidate just called out a major double standard among his 2020 hopefuls. Stay tuned.
Here as of yesterday.
Spring is rain.
Right?
But it's not snow.
Well, some areas could get a little bit of snow. Okay, so it's 32 in Minneapolis, 37 in Chicago, 44 in New York. So this is a coastal, though, that's going to develop. Also want to point out that we have more rain in the forecast for our friends in California, parts of the desert Southwest. But we are watching this area of low pressure that is going to move offshore and bring us our coastal low. If it was a little bit colder, we would be talking about a big snow event, but because the temperatures are going to be in the 50s, it will be mainly a rain wind event along the coast. However, on the backside of this, we're going to drop those temperatures and we could get some snow flurries in interior sections of the Northeast. So that's what we're going to be watching over the next 24 to 48 hours. Mainly rain, as I mentioned. Some areas could get some heavy rain and some flooding. And then we could see the potential for several inches, maybe half a foot of snow or more for interior sections of the Northeast and New England. So there's your forecast today. Watching this coastal low, dealing with another area of low pressure moving into the Southwest from California. And of course, we're going to continue to monitor the flooding over the Midwest, which is going to be an ongoing situation for many weeks to come.
It's unreal to see some of those pictures of those rivers swelling over.
Incredible. Nebraska.
And it's going to mess with the farming and the ability for them to plant crops.
It deserves more attention.
It certainly
we certainly
does.
bring it to you. Yep.
Just so you know, we also had an awkward toss to weather yesterday, too.
Oh, with Adam?
Yeah.
Well, he's okay with that.
If it wasn't for awkward tosses, I wouldn't have a job.
Look at Brian Kilmeade. He's made a career out of it.
True.
Hi, Brian Kilmeade.
Oh, man.
Thanks,
Somebody
Janice.
said it. Janice, thanks so much. All right, let's do some more news. The president launching a new attack on the late Senator John McCain 7 months after his death.
I gave him the kind of funeral that he wanted, which as president I had to approve. I don't care about this. I didn't get thank you. That's okay. We sent him on the way, but I wasn't a fan of John McCain.
Senator McCain certainly got under the president's skin. They had a feud that lasted a long time. The president criticizing the McCain family at an event in Lima, Ohio yesterday. He's been criticizing the senator for years. They did not like each other. It's pretty clear. The president being slammed for those comments from politicians on both sides of the aisle.
And Meghan McCain, very defensive, obviously,
Absolutely,
coming to her father's defense. Let's talk about this now. Failed Florida gubernatorial candidate Andrew Gillum thinks he knows how to stop President Trump from winning re-election.
We are going to commit ourselves to registering and engaging 1 million voters between now and 2020's presidential election. 1 million voters.
Gillum hopes his plan will help a Democrat win the White House in 2020. There are nearly 5 million registered Democrats in Florida right now. President Trump won the state in 2016. It is 15 minutes until the top of the hour. Dozens of schools nationwide now have Narcan on hand amid the opioid crisis. But is this putting too much pressure on educators? Our parent panel weighs in next.
And since we just brought him up, talking about awkward teases and awkward tosses, here's Brian Kilmeade.
The awkward man himself. Good morning, Brian.
Thank you, Jillian.
I hope you heard that. If you didn't hear it, it's very funny.
Well, I would say this, Rob. I expect you to be sarcastic to me, but for Jillian to stoop to that level, and that really hurts my feelings.
I'm already in the low blow section. It's for her to dip down there. Yeah.
You spent a lot of your time there. Hey, let me tell you what we have on tap over the next 3 hours. And as usual, you can nix any guest. Senator Rick Scott's going to be here live. He's going to talk about why so many people are leaving the red states and have gone to, blue states gone to the red states. He all knows it's all about taxes. He's going to be here live. Governor Mike Huckabee on this big late-term abortion talk and why Democrats are staying away from it. Ben Shapiro's got a brand new book on what's right about just about everything. Dana Lash is upset about who got a Cronkite Award and who can blame her. It's called CNN. Judge Andrew Napolitano will be here live. And we're going to be talking about Beto O'Rourke's choice to to eat dirt, and I'm not kidding. Also, the President of the United States talking about bringing jobs back to Ohio. We're going to be talking about all that and this. It's an emotional reunion going viral. This 9-year-old boy realizing his sparring partner isn't any old matchup.
So there we go.
Daddy?
That's his U.S. Army Staff Sergeant dad arriving home from a nearly year-long deployment. Coming home early. Those two join us live.
The opioid overdose medication Narcan in an effort to fight the growing epidemic. But are educators trained enough to know how to use it? Our parent panel is here to weigh in. Angel Masonette is a retired NYPD detective. Kathy Barnett is a radio show host. And Sue Kruzek lost her son to an opioid overdose. Thank you all for being here. We really appreciate it. And Sue, I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Let's start with you. What do you think about schools having Narcan on hand?
I think it is needed. It's definitely necessary. Our school nurses are essentially our first responders to the schools. And I think having Narcan on hand is kind of like having an EpiPen on hand. You know, you certainly hope you don't need to use it, but heavens forbid it's needed and you don't have it. It could be a matter of life or death.
Kathy, it begs the question, by having this on hand, do you think that gives some students perhaps the mentality of, well, it's here, so it's here if I need it? Does that, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. You know what? I mean, and when I think about it, I think at the point of a child actually overdosing on the playground, in the cafeteria, I don't think that would be the time to try to draw that red line in the sand. I think at that particular moment, if a child, because the only time you would use it is if someone is overdosing, and at that particular moment, I think our main issue should be how can we intervene to save this child's life. I mean, these are very uncomfortable discussions to have. It's very similar to the discussion we're having surrounding arming educators in light of school shootings. No one wants to have those discussions. They're very difficult, but I believe this is our new reality, and how are we going to address it appropriately?
Angel, do you think a school is the right place for it? Do you think educators and nurses are trained properly? Do you think they would need more training perhaps? Where do you think that stands?
I think they would definitely need more training. I think that having police officers in schools, that's a huge debate, right? But when the police officers who are trained for this high stress situation, educators deal with these children every day. They have intimate relationships as far as like emotionally, you know, they teach these kids, they see them on a daily basis. It's a lot easier, although the police officers in the school, it would be a lot easier for the police officer to deal with that high stress situation and administer the Narcan as opposed to an educator or a school nurse, in my opinion.
So what do you want people to know about opioids?
I want everybody to know that they're a beast, and this addiction, opioid addiction, it does not discriminate. It's ruthless, and it can happen to anyone. And the people that scare me the most are the people that say, not my kid, or not in my school. You know, we're losing 192 Americans a day. It's like a plane going down every single day. And, you know, this is serious.
How do we advance this conversation, Kathy?
Just by doing exactly what you guys are doing right now. I mean, I homeschool my kids. I am a huge advocate that parents should parent their own children. I strongly believe that schools should stick to reading, writing, arithmetic, throwing some social studies and science, and send my child back to me because I am their parent. However, we are not benefiting anyone to pretend that we don't have a very real issue on our hand. So we got to get real about it, and we have to have these conversations.
And there's a number of states right now that use Narcan in schools are required in New Jersey, Rhode Island, Maryland, a bunch others there where it's permitted, and then bills pending in other states. You can see our map right there. So where do you see this going, Angel? Where should this go?
I think that, again, having police officers in schools is the biggest benefit. I think it would benefit having the police officers there because, again, they're trained first responders, high stress situations. There's no doubt about it. The opioid crisis in this country is out of control. It's a conversation that has to be had. If the child can be saved by administering the Narcan, of course the option should be there, but I think it should be administered by a police officer or someone, a team of cops who are in a school and are trained to deal with these situations.
Okay. Angel, Kathy, Sue, thank you for your time. We appreciate it. And again, sorry for